Day 1 wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked through the cramped corridors of Threshold 7's docking bay. The mining colony sat on the edge of known space, a dusty rock where people came when they had nowhere else to go. He liked it that way. Fewer questions, more credits, and nobody cared what you hauled, as long as you kept your mouth shut. His ship, the Wandering Dream, waited in Dock 17. She was old, patched in a dozen places, and made strange noises during jumps. But she was his. 30 years of hauling cargo across the frontier had paid for every bolt and wire in her hull. The comm device in his pocket buzzed. Day 1 pulled it out and saw an unknown number. He almost ignored it, but unknown numbers usually meant money. "Yeah?" he answered. "Are you the hauler? The one who doesn't ask questions?" The voice on the other end was panicked, speaking too fast. A man, probably young, definitely scared. "Depends on the cargo and the price," Day 1 said. He leaned against a support beam and watched workers load containers onto nearby ships. "I need something moved off-world. Tonight. Right now, actually. I'll pay triple your usual rate." Triple. Day 1 straightened up. Triple meant either something very illegal or very dangerous. Usually both. "What's the cargo?" "Research samples. Biological materials. Completely sealed container. Temperature controlled. You just need to transport it to the Meridian Station. That's all. Biological materials need permits. Customs will. I have all the paperwork. Everything is legitimate. Please. I just need someone I can trust to move it quickly and carefully. No detours. No delays." Day 1 thought about his bank account. Thought about the repairs the Wandering Dream needed. Thought about the fact that he hadn't eaten anything better than protein paste in 3 weeks. "Send me the dock location. I'll look at it." 20 minutes later, Day 1 stood in front of a small warehouse on the colony's southern edge. The man who met him there looked exactly like he sounded young, maybe late 20s, wearing a stained lab coat and carrying a datapad like his life depended on it. "You're the hauler?" the scientist asked. "I'm a hauler. Name's Day 1. You got a name?" "It doesn't matter. Here's the container." He gestured to a large metal crate behind him, about 2 meters tall and just as wide. Frost gathered on its surface, and Day 1 could hear a faint humming from the cooling system inside. "That's bigger than you said. It will fit in a standard cargo bay. I checked your ship's specifications." Day 1 raised an eyebrow. "You researched me? I needed someone reliable." The scientist shoved a datapad into Day 1's hands. "Here's the contract. Here's the documentation. Here's half the payment up front. And, Day 1 looked at the numbers. His eyes widened slightly. This was enough to fix his ship and eat real food for a month. Maybe 2. "What's really in there?" he asked. "Research samples. That's all you need to know." "Research. If this gets me killed, it won't. Just deliver it to Meridian Station. Someone will meet you there. Easy job. Easiest credits you'll ever make." Day 1 looked at the crate again. The frost. The humming. The way the scientist kept glancing over his shoulder, like he expected someone to burst through the door. He should walk away. 30 years of hauling cargo had taught him when something smelled wrong. This reeked, but triple rate. Fine. Load it up. The scientist exhaled with relief. Together, they maneuvered the crate onto a transport dolly and wheeled it to the Wandering Dream. The loading process took an hour. The crate was heavy, temperamental, and required specific positioning in the cargo bay. The scientist fussed over every detail, checking monitors and adjusting temperature controls. "It needs to stay between 15 and 20 degrees, he said. "If it gets colder or warmer, you could damage the samples." "Got it. Anything else?" "Don't open it. Don't scan it too deeply. Don't tell anyone what you're carrying." "I never do," Day 1 said. The scientist nodded. then practically ran off the ship. Day 1 watched him disappear into the colony's dim corridors. Something was definitely wrong. But the credits were already in his account. Half now, half on delivery. He'd done worse jobs for less. The Wandering Dream launched an hour later. Day 1 sat in the pilot's seat, running through pre-flight checks while the ship's computer calculated the jump to Meridian Station. 6 days of travel through empty space. Nothing unusual. The first 3 days passed without incident. Day 1 spent his time reading, exercising in the small crew quarters, and checking on the cargo. The crate sat in the bay exactly where he'd left it. Frost still gathering on its surface, humming still steady. On the 4th day, the Wandering Dream hit unexpected turbulence. Day 1 was eating dinner when the ship suddenly lurched sideways. Alarms blared. His meal went flying across the cabin. "Computer, what was that?" he shouted, grabbing the pilot's controls. Gravitational anomaly detected. Compensating. The ship shook again, harder this time. Day 1 fought with the controls, bringing the Wandering Dream back to stable flight. The alarms eventually quieted. He exhaled slowly. "Scan for damage," he ordered. "Minor damage to port stabilizer. Cargo bay door seal compromised. Recommend immediate inspection." Day 1 cursed. The cargo bay. He grabbed a repair kit and headed down the narrow corridor to the bay doors. When they opened, cold air rushed out. Too cold. Cold air. Too cold. Cold air. The crate had shifted during the turbulence. One corner had struck the wall, and now the front panel was cracked open. Through the gap, Day 1 could see inside. Eggs, 4 enormous eggs, each one easily a meter tall, sat in cushioned restraints inside the crate. They glowed faintly, colors shifting across their surfaces like oil on water. Blue, green, gold, red, purple. The shells looked thick but somehow translucent, and he could see shadows moving inside them. "What the hell?" Day 1 whispered. Heat radiated from the eggs. That was why the crate needed cooling. These things were hot. He stepped closer, fascinated, despite himself. What kind of creature laid eggs this big? What kind of scientist stole them? The ship's alarm system suddenly screamed to life. Warning. Large vessel approaching. Unknown configuration. Warning. Day 1 ran back to the cockpit. The displays showed something massive on his sensors. Huge. Bigger than any ship he'd ever seen. It wasn't moving like a normal vessel either. The trajectory was organic, flowing, like a living thing swimming through space. "Computer, identify that ship." Unable to identify. Configuration does not match any known vessels in database. The massive vessel was closing fast. Too fast for something that size. Day 1's hands flew across the controls, trying to plot an escape route. Then the voice came. It didn't come through the comm system. It came through his head, resonating inside his skull like thunder. Day 1 grabbed his head in pain as the words formed. "Human. You have taken my offspring." The voice was ancient, powerful, and absolutely furious. It vibrated through every bone in his body. "I can explain," Day 1 shouted at nothing. "I didn't know. I was just hired to transport." "Silence. You will come to me. Now." The Wandering Dream lurched. Not from turbulence this time, but from an invisible force grabbing the entire ship. Day 1 watched in horror as his controls stopped responding. The ship turned slowly, pulled toward the massive vessel like a fish on a line. He slammed his fist on the console. Pulled every lever. Tried every override command he knew. Nothing worked. The Wandering Dream drifted helplessly toward the enormous bioship, and all Day 1 could think about was the scientist's panicked face and the words, "Easiest credits you'll ever make." He'd been hauling cargo for 30 years. He'd been shot at, chased, betrayed, and nearly killed more times than he could count. But he'd never been hunted by something that could speak directly into his mind. The massive vessel opened like a mouth, revealing a cavernous hangar bay inside. The wandering dream was swallowed whole. The hangar bay was massive beyond comprehension. Day One's entire ship could have fit inside 20 times over. The walls weren't metal or any material he recognized. They looked organic, pulsing with faint light like the inside of a living creature. Because that's exactly what it was. The wandering dream settled onto the floor with a soft thud. Day One sat frozen in the pilot's seat, hands still gripping the useless controls. His heart pounded so hard, he could hear it in his ears. The voice came again, softer this time, but no less terrifying. "Come out, human. Face me." Day One stood on shaking legs. He considered weapons but immediately dismissed the idea. What good would a plasma pistol do against something that could pull his entire ship through space with its mind? He walked to the airlock, took a deep breath, and opened it. The air outside was warm and smelled like heated stone. Day One descended the ramp slowly. His boots touched the strange floor, and he felt it pulse beneath his feet like a heartbeat. Then he saw her. Velkara was enormous. Her body stretched at least 30 meters from nose to tail, covered in scales that shifted through colors like the eggs in his cargo bay. Her wings were folded against her sides, each one large enough to cover his entire ship. Her eyes were ancient, glowing with an inner light. And when she looked at him, Day One felt like she could see every thought he'd ever had. A dragon. He was standing in front of an actual dragon. "You took my children," Velkara said. Her mouth didn't move, but the words formed perfectly in his mind. "You stole them from their nesting ground." "I didn't steal anything." Day One found his voice, though it came out shakier than he wanted. "I was hired to transport a sealed crate. I didn't know what was inside until an hour ago." Lies. Velkara moved closer. Each step shook the ground. Heat radiated from her body like standing near a furnace. "All humans lie. All humans lie. Velkara. Velkara. All humans lie. All humans lie. I'm not lying. Look, I can show you the contract. The paperwork. I was just doing a job. Some scientist hired me to move cargo. That's all." "A scientist." Velkara's eyes narrowed. "Describe him." Day One described the panicked young man in the lab coat. As he talked, Velkara's anger seemed to shift, focusing somewhere else. "Markarian," she hissed. The name sounded like burning paper. "He was at the research station near my nesting grounds. I warned them to stay away. I told them my eggs were in their final stage of development. But humans never listen. I swear I didn't know," Day One said. "I've never hauled dragon eggs before. I didn't even know dragons were real. Until about 5 minutes ago." Velkara stared at him for a long moment. Then her head lowered, bringing one massive eye level with his face. Day One fought every instinct to run. "I will see the truth," she said. Something pushed into Day One's mind. It felt like fingers rifling through a drawer, pulling out memories and examining them. He saw flashes of his own life played back, accepting the contract, loading the crate, discovering the eggs. She was reading his memories, watching his thoughts like recorded videos. The pressure in his head suddenly released. Velkara pulled back. "You speak the truth. You are simply a fool who accepted the wrong job." "Yeah, well, story of my life," Day One muttered. Relief flooded through him. "So, can I go? I'll return your eggs, of course. No delivery fee. We can just forget this whole thing happened." "We? No." "No?" Velkara's tail swept across the floor. "You cannot simply return them. The damage is done." "What damage?" "They're fine. I checked them. They're still glowing and warm, and they have been moved during their bonding period." "This is catastrophic." Velkara's voice carried a pain that made Day One's chest ache. Dragon eggs must remain in their nesting ground for the final 6 months before hatching. They bond with the energy of that place, with the presence of their parent. It anchors them to the world, gives them strength when they break free from the shell. But they're okay, right? I kept them at the right temperature. The crate has all the proper controls. Physical temperature is irrelevant, human. They bond to psychic resonance, to the energy signature of a place. Your ship has disrupted that process. Day one felt cold despite the heat radiating from Velkara. What does that mean? Will they die? If they are moved again before hatching, yes. The shock would kill them. Velkara looked away, and Day one saw something he never expected to see in those ancient eyes. Fear. They have already imprinted on your ship's energy signature. It is too late to reverse it. If I take them back to my nesting ground now, they will sense the change and die. If you move them to another ship, they will die. They must remain exactly where they are until they hatch. The implications hit Day one like a falling rock. 6 months? You want me to keep 4 dragon eggs on my cargo hauler for 6 months? I do not want anything from you, human. But you have created this situation, and now you must fix it. I told you, I didn't know. Your ignorance does not change reality. Velkara's voice hardened. My eggs need stability. They need the presence of the energy signature they have imprinted on. That means your ship, exactly as it is now, must remain their home until they hatch. That's insane. I have jobs lined up, bills to pay. I can't just park my ship somewhere for half a year. Then my children will die, and I will ensure you die with them. The threat was delivered calmly, but Day one didn't doubt she meant every word. Okay. Let me think. His mind raced. 6 months. He'd have to cancel all his contracts, lose all that income, maybe sell some of his equipment just to buy food. And for what? To babysit eggs? But the alternative was death at the claws of an angry dragon. What do they need? He finally asked. Besides staying on my ship? Warmth, stability, protection from threats. Velkara moved closer again. I will monitor them from a distance. If anything happens to my eggs, I will know immediately. And I will come for you. Fantastic. There is more. Velkara's eyes glowed brighter. Dragon eggs are valuable. Human. There are those who would kill you to possess them. Collectors, researchers, those who want to raise dragons as weapons. You will need to defend them. Great. So I'm not just a babysitter. I'm also a bodyguard. You are a clutch keeper now, whether you accept it or not. This is your responsibility. Day one wanted to argue more. Wanted to explain how unfair this was, how he was just a simple cargo hauler who took the wrong job. But looking at Velkara, at the fear and desperation in those ancient eyes, he understood something. She was a mother. A terrified mother, whose children were in danger. He thought about his own mother, dead 20 years now. Thought about how she'd raised him alone on a colony, not much better than Threshold 7. How she'd worked 3 jobs to keep him fed. How she'd always protected him, no matter what. Fine, he said quietly. I'll keep them safe. But you need to tell me everything. What temperature exactly? Do they need anything besides warmth? Are there any signs I should watch for? Velkara's expression softened slightly. I don't really have a choice, do I? Besides, Day one glanced back at his ship. I've hauled a lot of cargo in my life. Some of it legal, most of it not. But I've never hauled anything alive before. Anything that needed me. They will need constant monitoring. Temperature between 15 and 20 degrees, as the scientist correctly stated. Humidity between 40 and 60%. They must not be jostled or subjected to extreme gravitational forces. No weapons fire near them. No radiation. No sudden changes. So basically I need to turn my cargo bay into a nursery. Yes, Day one laughed. It started as a small chuckle but grew until he was bent over, hands on his knees, The absurdity of it all crashed over him. A cargo hauler. Raising dragon eggs. In space. Are you damaged, human? Velkara asked. Probably. Yeah, probably. Day One straightened up, wiping tears from his eyes. All right, let's do this. But I'm going to need supplies, equipment, money to survive 6 months without income. I can provide resources. What do you need? They spent the next hour discussing details. Velkara transferred credits to his account, enough to buy food and equipment for a year. She provided data files on dragon biology, warning signs, and emergency procedures. She even modified his ship's environmental controls with a touch of her claw, integrating systems that would maintain perfect conditions for the eggs. When it was done, Daewon stood at his ship's ramp again, ready to leave. Human, Velkara called. What is your name? Daewon. Daewon. She spoke it carefully, like tasting a new flavor. I will be watching. Fail me. And no corner of the galaxy will hide you. I got it. Protect the eggs, or die horribly. Message received. He climbed back into the wandering dream, and the massive bioship released its hold. His controls responded again. Daewon plotted a course away from Meridian Station, away from his planned jobs, toward empty space where he could drift for 6 months in relative safety. As his ship pulled away from the dragon vessel, he looked at the monitor showing his cargo bay. 4 eggs, glowing softly in their restraints. Well, he said to nobody in particular, this is definitely not how I planned my year. The eggs pulsed with light, almost like they were responding to his voice. Daewon sighed and pointed his ship toward the emptiness of space. 6 months. He could do this. He had to. 3 weeks into his unexpected role as Dragon Egg Guardian, Daewon had transformed the wandering dream into something barely recognizable. The cargo bay now housed a sophisticated environmental control system, complete with temperature sensors, humidity regulators, and backup power systems. He'd mounted cameras at every angle so he could monitor the eggs from anywhere on the ship. The eggs themselves had become his entire world. He checked them constantly, noting every small change in their glow, every slight shift in temperature. He'd started a log, documenting everything like a scientist or a worried parent. Day 21. He spoke into his recorder while eating breakfast. All 4 eggs stable. The blue one, I've started calling it Ember, seems to pulse brighter when I talk near it. Probably my imagination, but I swear it responds to sound. He'd named all of them. Ember for the blue one that glowed brightest. Ash for the gray one with silver streaks. Cinder for the red one that always felt warmest. Spark for the smallest one. Purple with gold flecks. I know you're not supposed to name cargo, he muttered, but you're not really cargo anymore. A message notification broke his routine. Daewon frowned. He'd told everyone he was taking 6 months off, refusing all jobs. Who would contact him now? The screen showed a familiar face. His heart actually lifted. Jin. His old friend appeared on the video call, sitting in what looked like a repair station. She was covered in grease, her hair tied back, wearing the same determined expression she'd had since they were teenagers on the same colony world. Daewon, what the hell? Jin said without preamble. You're in the middle of nowhere. You got my beacon? Daewon had sent it the day after meeting Velkara, a general call for help to anyone who might care. He'd honestly forgotten about it. Of course I got it. I've been tracking you for weeks. Now tell me what's going on. Are you hurt? Is your ship damaged? Why are you just floating in dead space? Daewon glanced at the cargo bay monitor. It's complicated, then uncomplicated. He told her everything. The job, the eggs, Velkara, the 6-month deadline. Jin listened without interrupting, her expressions cycling through disbelief, anger, and finally something like fascinated horror. You're babysitting dragon eggs? She said flatly. Yes, actual dragon eggs. Yes, for 6 months, 4.5 now. I've already survived 3 weeks. Hai-Jin laughed. It was the same laugh from their childhood. The one that meant she thought he was the biggest idiot alive, but she loved him anyway. Only you, Day One. Only you could accidentally become a dragon parent. You don't need to. Shut up. I'm an engineer. You're barely competent with duct tape and hope. If you're going to keep those eggs alive, you need proper systems. Plus, this is the most interesting thing I've heard in years. I'm not missing it. Hai-Jin arrived 4 days later in her own small ship. She docked with the Wandering Dream and immediately started examining everything Day One had rigged together. Not bad, she admitted, running diagnostics on the environmental controls. For an amateur. But these backup systems are a mess. If your primary power fails, these wouldn't kick in fast enough. I did my best. Your best could kill them. Let me work. Over the next week, Hai-Jin upgraded every system in the cargo bay. She installed redundant power supplies, improved the temperature regulation, and even added a bio-monitoring system that would alert them to any changes in the egg's condition. There, she said, wiping her hands. Now, they're actually safe. Thank you, Day One said quietly. Hai-Jin looked at him. Really looked. And her expression softened. You care about them. The eggs. Is that crazy? Completely, she smiled. But when has that ever stopped you? They fell into a routine. Hai-Jin stayed aboard the Wandering Dream, sleeping in the small crew quarters, working on various improvements throughout the ship. Day One continued his careful monitoring, checking the eggs multiple times per day. At night, he started talking to them. So there's this planet called Taean, he told them on day 37. That's where I grew up. It was mostly water, with these floating cities. Beautiful place, if you ignored the poverty and crime. My mom used to take me to the dock edges, and we'd watch the sun set over the ocean. The eggs pulsed gently as he talked. All 4 of them, responding to his voice. He does this every night. Hai-Jin whispered to her recorder. She was making her own logs. Tells them stories. Talks about his life. It's actually kind of sweet. On day 42, the first real threat arrived. Day One was asleep when the ship's alarm screamed. He bolted awake, racing to the cockpit in his underwear. Hai-Jin was already there, her hands flying across the controls. 3 ships, she said. Small attack vessels. They just appeared on sensors. Pirates? Worse. Look at their configuration. Those are military-grade hunter ships. Someone knows what we're carrying. Day One's blood went cold. Velkara had warned him about this. People who would kill for dragon eggs. A message came through, audio only. Cargo vessel Wandering Dream. Power down your engines. Surrender your cargo, and you will not be harmed. They're lying, Hai-Jin said. I know. Day One grabbed the comm. This is Wandering Dream. We're a registered transport ship with legal cargo. You have no authority. We have all the authority we need. Surrender the eggs, or we will take them by force. The 3 ships moved closer, weapons charging. Day One could see the energy signatures building on his displays. What do we do? Hai-Jin asked. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. Day One thought fast. The Wandering Dream wasn't built for combat. She had basic shields, and 1 small plasma cannon that barely qualified as a weapon. Against 3 military hunters, they'd last maybe 30 seconds. But he'd spent 30 years hauling cargo through dangerous space. 30 years learning tricks and shortcuts. 30 years surviving. Can you override their targeting systems? He asked. What? Their weapons. Can you scramble their targeting long enough for us to run? Hai-Jin's eyes widened. Maybe. If I can get close enough to their network. But we'd need to lower our shields for me to send the hack. Do it. I'll keep us alive. She nodded and started typing furiously. Day One took manual control of the ship, his hands steady on the controls, despite the fear coursing through him. The lead hunter ship fired a warning shot that splashed harmlessly against their shields. Next shot will be through your engines. The voice warned. Now would be good, Heijin. Almost. Got it. She slammed a final key. The hunter ships suddenly went dark, their weapons powering down, their engines sputtering. Confusion flooded their communications. Go! Heijin shouted. Daewon punched the engines. The wandering dream leaped forward, racing past the disabled hunters. He plotted a jump to faster than light speed, his fingers dancing across the controls. 10 seconds to jump, the computer announced. Weapons fire streaked past them. The hunters had rebooted faster than expected. Energy blasts hammered their rear shields. 5 seconds. An explosion rocked the ship. Alarms shrieked. The cargo bay. No, Daewon screamed. The ship jumped, reality twisting around them as they entered faster than light travel. The moment they stabilized, Daewon was running toward the cargo bay, Heijin right behind him. The door was partially melted from weapons fire. Smoke filled the bay. The temperature alarm was screaming. Through the smoke, Daewon saw the eggs. 3 of them were fine, still glowing in their restraints. But one ember, his blue egg, had rolled free. No, no, no. Daewon scrambled to it, burning his hands on the hot shell. He cradled it carefully, checking for cracks. The glow was fading. Heijin worked on the environmental controls, trying to restore proper temperature. Daewon held Ember close to his chest, trying to share his body heat. Stay with me, he whispered. Come on. Stay with me. The egg grew dimmer. Velkara's words echoed in his mind. If they are moved again before hatching, the shock would kill them. I'm sorry. He whispered to the dying egg. I'm so sorry. I tried. I really tried. Then something changed. A warmth spread through his chest. Not from the egg, but from somewhere deeper. He felt it pulse through his body. A connection he didn't understand but recognized somehow as right. The egg pulsed once. Twice. Its glow steadied. Then slowly grew brighter. What? Heijin stared. I don't know, but he felt it. A bond. Like a thread connecting him to the egg-no, to the life inside it. Fragile, but real. Heijin finished the repairs. They carefully returned Ember to its restraints and checked all 4 eggs thoroughly. Somehow, impossibly, they were all stable. They imprinted on the ship's energy, Heijin said quietly. But maybe they're starting to imprint on you too. Daewon looked at his hands, still red from the heat of the egg. Is that possible? I have no idea. But I saw what happened. That egg was dying, and then you held it. And it came back. They jumped to a different sector of space, somewhere more remote. Heijin patched the cargo bay door and reinforced the shields. Daewon sat in the bay with the eggs, his hand resting on Ember's shell. I've got you, he whispered. All of you. I promise. The eggs glowed in response. All 4 pulsing in sync. Outside the ship, in the vast emptiness of space, something else watched through senses humans didn't possess. Velkara felt the bond forming between her offspring and the strange human, and for the first time in 1,000 years, she felt something like hope. Perhaps, she thought, she had chosen the right keeper after all, even if it was completely by accident. Day 93 brought the storm. Day 1 was teaching Heijin an old card game when the ship's long-range sensors started screaming. Not the normal proximity alarm, but the deep space warning that meant something massive was approaching. Please tell me that's Velkara checking in, Heijin said, already running to the cockpit. Daewon pulled up the sensor data and felt his stomach drop. It's not. The energy signature is different. Similar, but colder. Angrier. Angrier? You can tell emotions from sensor readings now? Yes. And he could. 3 months of living with dragon eggs had changed something in him. He could sense things he never could before, feel energies that normal humans missed. Whatever that is, it's hunting us. The massive shape resolved on their screens. Another bioship, similar to Velkara's but darker, covered in armor-like scales that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. It moved through space like a predator stalking prey. The telepathic voice that hammered into their minds was nothing like Velkara's maternal concern. I smell the hatchlings. Weak. Protected by cattle. Give them to me, and I will grant you a swift death. Friend of yours? Heejin asked, through gritted teeth. Not exactly. Daewon checked the weapon systems. Still, just the one small plasma cannon. We need to run. To where? Look at the speed on that thing. She was right. The dark bioship was faster than the Wandering Dream by an order of magnitude. Running wouldn't work. Then we fight, Daewon said. With what? Our sparkling personality? An asteroid field showed on the navigation charts, about 10 minutes away at full speed. It was their only chance. Hold on, Daewon said, and pushed the engines to maximum. The Wandering Dream shot forward. Behind them, the dark bioship followed, gaining steadily. Energy blasts started impacting their shields, not enough to break through yet, but testing their defenses. Who is that? Heejin demanded. I don't know, but I can guess. Velkara said there were other dragons who might want the eggs. Competitors. Enemies. Great. So we're caught in dragon politics. They reached the asteroid field with shields at 40%. This was what the Wandering Dream was built for: tight spaces, quick maneuvers, the kind of flying that required instinct over calculation. The dark bioship followed, but its massive size worked against it. Asteroids that Daewon could slip between forced the dragon to destroy or dodge. He used every trick he knew, spinning the ship through gaps that seemed impossible. Cutting thrust at the last second to avoid collisions. You're insane, Heijin shouted, gripping her seat. Working so far, an asteroid the size of a building exploded as the dragon ship's breath weapon, or whatever it was, vaporized it. Chunks of superheated rock pelted their shields. The telepathic voice came again, closer now, pressing against their minds like a physical weight. You cannot hide from Morthax the Sunderer. I have hunted worlds. I have devoured stars. You are nothing but meat protecting what is mine. The eggs aren't yours, Daewon shouted back, not sure if the dragon could even hear him. Apparently it could. Morthax laughed, and the sound felt like glass breaking inside Daewon's skull. Velkara's spawn should have been destroyed before they hatched. She is weak, sentimental. I will correct her mistake and consume the power within those shells. A massive blast struck their rear shields. The entire ship shook. Alarms screamed. Shields at 10%, Heijin reported. One more hit and we're done. Daewon spun the ship behind a large asteroid, buying seconds. His mind raced. They couldn't outrun this dragon. Couldn't outfight it. Their only advantage was the asteroids, and those wouldn't last forever. Unless... Can you overload our plasma cannon? He asked. Heijin stared at him. That would destroy it, and probably blow a hole in our own ship. No, but it would create an explosion, right? A big one? Yes. But understanding dawned in her eyes. You want to use it as a mine. Detach it. Program it to overload when something big passes by. We lead Morthax straight to it. That's the stupidest plan I've ever heard. Heejin was already working on the controls. I love it. And in way, I love it. She worked frantically, overriding safety systems and programming the cannon to detach. Daewon kept them moving, weaving through asteroids, staying just ahead of Morthax's attacks. Ready, Heejin announced. Hold it. We need the perfect spot. Daewon spotted it, a narrow gap between two massive asteroids, barely wide enough for the Wandering Dream. Morthax would have to squeeze through or go around, and something that size couldn't resist a direct path. Now, the cannon detached, floating in space. They shot through the gap. Daewon immediately cut power and spun the ship, hiding behind one of the asteroids. Morthax came through moments later, too focused on the hunt to notice the small device floating in its path. The dragon ship passed within meters of the overloading cannon. The explosion was beautiful and terrible, White-hot plasma erupted in a sphere of destruction. The asteroids on either side shattered. The shockwave sent the wandering dream tumbling. When the light cleared, Morthax's bioship was damaged. A huge section of its side burned and bleeding some kind of luminescent fluid into space. But it was still alive, still moving. "That should have killed it," Hijin shouted. "Dragons are tough." Day One fought with the controls, trying to stabilize their spin. But we bought time. Maybe Velkara felt the fight, and she's coming. The ship suddenly shook. Not from weapons, but from inside. A deep, resonant vibration that came from the cargo bay. "What was that?" Hijin asked. Daewon's eyes widened. "The eggs. The stress. The violence. I think one of them is hatching early." They ran to the cargo bay. All 4 eggs were glowing brighter than ever, pulsing with energy. But Ember, the blue one, that had almost died, was cracking. Lines of light spread across its surface like a spider's web. The shell was breaking from the inside. "Is this normal?" Hijin asked. "Is it supposed to happen now? Is it supposed to happen now? Is it supposed to happen now? I don't know." Day One moved closer, watching the cracks spread. "It's 3 weeks early. The attack must have triggered it." The shell broke. A small claw pushed through, then another. A tiny snout emerged, and then, with a final push, a baby dragon fell onto the cushioned platform. She was tiny compared to Velkara, no bigger than a large dog, covered in scales that shifted through shades of blue and silver. Her eyes opened, glowing with the same light as her mother's, and focused immediately on Day One. The bond between them snapped into place like a physical thing. He felt her presence in his mind, not words exactly, but emotions. Confusion, fear, hunger, and something else. Recognition. "Hello, Ember," Day One whispered. The baby dragon made a sound, something between a chirp and a purr. Then she stumbled forward on unsteady legs and pressed her head against his hand. Heat radiated from her scales, but it didn't burn. It felt right. "That's the cutest thing I've ever seen," Heijin breathed. The ship shook again. Morthax was still coming. Ember's head snapped toward the hull, toward the direction of the attack. She growled. A tiny sound that should have been adorable, but somehow carried an echo of ancient power. "She knows," Day One said. "She knows we're in danger." The baby dragon's eyes began to glow brighter. Energy crackled around her small body, blue lightning dancing across her scales. She opened her mouth, and Day One felt power building. "Get back!" he shouted, pulling Heijin away. Ember roared. It wasn't a small sound. It resonated through the ship, through space itself, carrying a wave of electromagnetic energy that surged outward in all directions. Every system on the Wandering Dream flickered and died, then rebooted. Emergency lights came on. Life support kicked back in, but outside, Morthax's ship went completely dark. Day One stared at the monitors. The massive bioship was drifting, lifeless, its energy signature gone. Did that baby dragon just kill Morthax? Hijin asked. "No. Look," Day One pointed. The bioship was slowly regaining power, systems coming back online one by one. She hit it with an EMP, shut down everything. But something that old won't stay down for long. Ember collapsed, exhausted from her first use of power. Day One caught her before she hit the floor, cradling the tiny dragon in his arms. She was breathing hard, her eyes dimming. "You did good," he told her. "You bought us time." "How much time, though?" 5 minutes? 10? Morthax would recover, and when it did, it would be even angrier. Then space twisted. Reality bent. A familiar presence entered the system with the force of a hammer blow. Velkara arrived like a storm made flesh. Her bioship materialized from faster-than-light travel, positioning itself between the Wandering Dream and Morthax's slowly recovering vessel. Through the view screen, Day One watched as the dragon Matriarch emerged into open space, her wings spreading wide enough to cast shadows on asteroids. "You dare touch my offspring, Sunderer." Her telepathic voice was thunder and fury. "You dare threaten my clutch keeper?" Morthax recovered enough to respond. "They should be destroyed, Velkara. You know the law. Eggs raised by other species are raised by whom I choose." Velkara's roar shook every ship in the system. "These are my children. This human is their guardian. And you will leave. Now, the Council will hear of this." "Your weakness," Velkara breathed. "Not fire exactly, but superheated plasma that turned asteroids into vapor." The stream of destruction passed within meters of Morthax's ship. "Leave," she said, "or the next breath will not miss." Morthax's ship limped away, nursing its wounds. The dark bioship disappeared into faster-than-light travel, fleeing the system. Velkara turned her massive form toward the wandering dream. Her telepathic voice softened, just slightly. "Show me." Day One carried Ember to the airlock. When he emerged, holding the tiny dragon, Velkara's eyes widened. Then, to his amazement, they softened with something like love. "She hatched early," Velkara observed. "Because of the danger. She saved us. Hit Morthax with some kind of electromagnetic pulse. For a baby, she's pretty powerful." Velkara moved closer, examining her daughter. Ember stirred in Day One's arms, opened her eyes, and made a small chirping sound. "She is strong," Velkara said, "but she has bonded with you completely. Look." Day One looked down. Ember's scales were shifting color, matching the patterns on his jacket. Not copying them exactly, but responding to him, adapting to his presence. "What does this mean?" he asked. "It means she sees you as her parent, not I. You." Velkara's voice carried no anger, only acceptance. "The bond formed when she hatched. You were the first presence she recognized, the first voice she heard, the first touch she felt. In every way that matters to a dragon, you are her father." The weight of those words settled on Day One's shoulders. He looked at the tiny dragon in his arms, at her trusting eyes, at the way she curled against his chest for warmth and safety. "I don't know how to raise a dragon," he said quietly. "Neither do most dragons," Velkara replied. "But you protected her before she was born. You held her when she was dying. You fought to keep her safe. That is what matters." Ember chirped again and closed her eyes, falling asleep in his arms. "The other three," Day One said. "Will they hatch soon?" "Within days, I suspect. The stress has accelerated their development. You will have 4 dragons aboard your ship. That's going to be interesting." Velkara made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You have no idea, Clutch Keeper. No idea at all." She returned to her bioship but didn't leave. Instead, she positioned herself nearby, standing guard, protecting her children and their strange human guardian. Inside the wandering dream, Day One carefully placed Ember in a padded nest Heejin had quickly assembled. The baby dragon curled up, her scales glowing softly in the dim light. "You're a father now," Heejin said. "How does it feel?" Day One watched Ember sleep and thought about everything that had led to this moment. The wrong job, the stolen eggs, the impossible situation. "Terrifying," he admitted. "Absolutely terrifying." But when Ember shifted in her sleep and made a small, contented sound, he smiled. "And somehow right," he added. "Crazy. Impossible. And definitely not what I planned. But right." The other 3 eggs hatched within 5 days, just as Velkara predicted. Ash emerged second, a gray dragon with silver markings who immediately tried to eat the sensor equipment. Cinder came third, red scales gleaming like heated metal, already breathing small puffs of flame. Spark hatched last, the smallest of the 4, with purple and gold scales that shimmered when the light hit them just right. All 4 bonded with Day One the moment they opened their eyes. All 4 saw him as their parent. "This is chaos," Heijin said. watching Cinder chase Spark around the cargo bay, while Ash tried to climb the walls, and Ember supervised from Day One's shoulder. Beautiful. Adorable chaos. They're babies, Day One said, gently removing Ember's claws from his shirt before she tore it. They're curious. They're destructive. Ash ate 3 control panels yesterday. Cinder melted a storage container, and Spark somehow phased through a wall. Phased? I don't know how else to describe it. 1 second she was in the bay, the next she was in my quarters, through solid metal. Velkhara visited daily, teaching the hatchlings basic dragon concepts, while also observing Day One's parenting style, with what he could only describe as amused skepticism. You let them play with fire? She asked, watching Cinder practice small flame bursts. Controlled fire. In a safe space, under supervision. And when Ash wanted to taste metal, I gave her scrap pieces. Better than her, chewing on something important. Humans, Velkhara said, but there was warmth in her telepathic voice. You adapt to anything. 3 weeks after Spark's hatching, Velkhara's demeanor changed. She arrived with unusual formality, her massive form radiating tension. The council has demanded an audience, she announced. The Dragon Conclave has heard of the situation. They wish to judge whether a human can truly be trusted as clutch keeper. Day One felt cold despite Ember's warmth on his shoulder. What happens if they say no? They will take my children from you. Raise them in the traditional way, among dragons. But they'll die if they're separated from the ship's energy signature. The council believes they can overcome that with sufficient power. They may be right, but it would be traumatic for the hatchlings, and many would not survive the process. Velkhara's eyes dimmed. I will argue for you, but the council is ancient. They do not change their minds easily. 2 days later, the Wandering Dream followed Velkhara's bioship to a system Day One had never heard of. 7 massive bioships waited there. Each one unique. Each one radiating power that made his sensors scream. The Dragon Conclave, Velkhara said. The 7 eldest dragons in known space. They have ruled our kind for millions of years. Hyjin stayed on the ship with the hatchlings while Day One followed Velkhara into the largest bioship. The interior was vast beyond comprehension. More like a planet than a vessel. At the center, 7 dragons waited. They made Velkhara look young. Their scales bore the marks of ages, scars from ancient wars, patterns of stars that no longer existed, colors that seemed to come from other dimensions. Their eyes held the weight of millennia. The largest dragon spoke, and its voice felt like mountains grinding together. I am Corvin the Eternal. We have gathered to judge this matter. A human clutch keeper. Unprecedented. Possibly dangerous. Another dragon, sleek and silver, spoke next. I am Silvar the Swift. Humans are short-lived creatures. Barely a century if they're lucky. These hatchlings will live for thousands of years. How can something so temporary provide lasting guidance? A third dragon, covered in crystals that grew from her scales, added her voice. I am Brython the Crystalline. Humans are chaotic, violent. They destroy their own worlds. Trusting them with dragon offspring risks corruption of the bloodline. One by one, the council members spoke, listing their concerns. Humans were too weak, too short-lived, too unpredictable. Dragons had never shared their young with other species. This broke tradition. This challenged ancient law. Finally, Corvin turned his massive head toward Day One. You will have a chance to defend yourself, human. Speak. Day One stepped forward. 4 tiny dragons followed him, refusing to leave his side despite Velkhara's attempts to keep them back. Ember climbed onto his shoulder. Ash wrapped around his leg. Cinder and Spark pressed against his sides. He looked up at the 7 ancient dragons and spoke from his heart. You're right, he said. About all of it. I'm human. I'll probably only live another 50 or 60 years if I'm lucky. I'm chaotic. I make mistakes. I took a job I shouldn't have taken, and it led to all of this. The dragons waited, listening, but I've spent every day for the last 4 months keeping these eggs safe. I turned my cargo ship into a nursery. I fought off pirates and mercenaries. I survived an attack from Morthax the Sunderer, not because I'm strong, or powerful, or wise, because I refused to let them die. He touched Ember's small head. She purred, the sound vibrating through the chamber. They bonded with me because I was there when they needed someone. I held them, protected them, talked to them, even when they were just eggs. And when they hatched, I was the first thing they saw, not by choice, not by planning, by accident and circumstance. Cinder breathed a small flame, protective, sensing Day One's tension. You say humans are short-lived. You're right. But maybe that's not a weakness. Maybe that means I'll cherish every day I have with them. You say we're chaotic. Maybe, but we also adapt. We survive. We find ways to make impossible things work. He looked each dragon in the eye, unafraid despite the power radiating from them. I don't know your traditions. I don't know dragon law or ancient customs. But I know these 4 hatchlings trust me. They chose me. And I will spend every remaining day of my short, chaotic human life making sure they grow up safe and strong. Silence filled the chamber. The 7 dragons looked at each other, communicating in ways Day One couldn't perceive. Finally, Silvar spoke. Words are easy, human. Any creature can speak of commitment. We require proof. What kind of proof? Day One asked. Korvan's eyes glowed brighter. The crucible. An ancient trial that tests one's dedication to their young. Most species cannot survive it. Many dragons have failed. If you truly are worthy to be a clutch keeper, the crucible will reveal it. And if I fail, you die. The hatchlings are given to traditional keepers. Ember hissed, pressing closer to Day One. The other 3 made similar sounds of distress. They didn't fully understand the words, but they sensed the danger. Velkara stepped forward. Korvan, the crucible was designed for dragons. A human mind cannot. If the human claims to be worthy, he must prove it. By our laws, by our traditions. The crucible judges all equally. Day One knelt down, gathering the 4 hatchlings close. Hey, listen to me. I need to do something scary, but I'll come back. I promise. You cannot promise that, Brython said. The crucible has killed stronger beings than you. Then I'll be the first human to survive it. He stood, gently removing the hatchlings and placing them in Velkara's care. They cried. Small sounds that broke his heart. Tell me what to do. They led him to a chamber at the ship's center. The walls glowed with psychic energy, pulsing with power that made his head ache. At the chamber's heart was a pool of liquid light. Enter the pool, Korvan instructed. The crucible will test your mind and spirit. You will face your fears, your failures, your darkest possibilities. If your commitment to the hatchlings is true, you will endure. If not, the crucible will burn away your consciousness, leaving only an empty shell. Day One looked at the pool. Every instinct screamed to run. But behind him, he could hear Ember crying for him. He stepped into the light. The world exploded into fire and terror. Day One found himself on the wandering dream, but everything was wrong. The ship was burning. Alarms screamed. Through the smoke, he saw 4 small bodies on the cargo bay floor. The hatchlings. Dead. No. He ran to them, but they crumbled to ash when he touched them. A voice echoed through the nightmare. You failed them. Too weak. Too slow. Too human. The scene shifted. Now he was elderly, lying in a medical bed. Around him stood 4 adult dragons, magnificent and powerful. They looked at him with pity. Thank you for your service, Keeper, one said. But you're dying, and we're just beginning our lives. We've outgrown you. They turned away, leaving him alone to die. The scene shifted again. Morthax stood over the eggs, crushing them one by one while Day One struggled against invisible bonds, unable to move, unable to save them. Again and again, the crucible showed him visions. In every one, the hatchlings died or abandoned him. In every one, he failed, but in every vision, Day One chose the same thing. He threw himself between danger and the eggs, even knowing he'd die. He stayed with them, even when they outgrew him, cherishing every moment. He fought impossible odds, lost every time, but never stopped trying. The visions grew more intense, more painful. His consciousness began to fray, stretched beyond human limits. But one thought kept him anchored. I promised them I'd come back. The fire suddenly stopped. Day One found himself standing in the pool of light, gasping, covered in sweat but alive. The 7 dragons stared at him in what might have been shock. He endured, Silvar said quietly. No human has ever. He endured as long as the strongest dragon warriors, Brython interrupted. His commitment matches our greatest clutch keepers. This should not be possible. Korvan lowered his massive head, examining Day One closely. In every vision of failure, you chose to protect them. Even in death, even in abandonment, your first thought was their safety. Your last thought was their well-being. That's what being a parent means, Day One managed to say through exhaustion. Doesn't it? The ancient dragon made a sound that might have been respect. The council conferred briefly. Then Korvan spoke with formal weight. By the power of the Dragon Conclave, by the ancient laws of our kind, we grant you the title of Clutch Keeper. You are recognized as guardian and parent to Velkara's offspring. No dragon may challenge this bond. You have earned your place in our history. Day One barely heard the rest. He stumbled from the chamber, legs shaking, mind still reeling from the crucible. Velkara caught him before he fell. You survived, she said, and there was awe in her voice. You actually survived. 4 small dragons broke free from attendants and rushed to him. Ember reached him first, climbing onto his chest and pressing her face against his. Ash, Cinder, and Spark piled on, all of them making worried sounds, checking him for injuries. I'm okay, he told them, wrapping his arms around all 4. I'm okay. I promised I'd come back, didn't I? Velkara watched the reunion, and Day One could swear he saw moisture in those ancient eyes. 6 months later, the wandering dream had evolved into something entirely new. Day One had converted most of the cargo space into living quarters for 4 growing dragons. Heijin had designed the Roost, a neutral space station where humans and dragons could meet and trade knowledge. Ember, now the size of a large horse, supervised her siblings' play from Day One's favorite chair, which she'd claimed as her own despite his protests. Ash practiced metalworking, creating sculptures with her claws and breath. Cinder specialized in precision flame control, helping Heijin with welding projects. Spark phased through walls regularly, exploring every corner of the ship. Velkara visited weekly, teaching the young dragons their heritage while respecting Day One's role as their primary parent. Tell me, human, she asked one day, watching the chaos of 4 juvenile dragons wrestling in the cargo bay. Do you regret accepting that cargo contract? Day One looked at his strange family. His ship that was no longer just a ship. His life that had transformed completely. Ember looked up and chirped at him, and the sound made him smile. Every single day, he said honestly. But I wouldn't change a thing. Velkara made that sound that might have been a laugh. Neither would I, Clutch Keeper. Neither would I. Through the view screen, Day One could see ships approaching the Roost human vessels and dragon bioships, coming together peacefully for the first time in history. All because one cargo hauler took the wrong job and ended up with 4 eggs. Ember climbed onto his shoulder. Too big for it now, but unwilling to give up the habit. She purred, content, safe, home. And Day One realized that sometimes the wrong choice leads to exactly where you need to be.